People need to know about a species in order to act on behalf of that species and protect their habitat. Polar Bears International is uniquely poised to connect people to polar bears in the Arctic. The Tundra Connections program allows us to connect scientists with viewers around the globe. And the goal of outreach like this is to instill hope and inspire action in our viewers.
We have a mobile broadcast studio, and we reach out to classrooms all over the world to talk about polar bears in the western Hudson Bay. We have a couple different kinds of connections that we do out here. Sometimes it's live back and forth, and other times the live connection goes out and questions are chatted back for us to answer.
Will polar bears go extinct?
What can my class do to help protect the ice?
Just the other day, we had a Skype chat with an entire school in Kiev, and we got to show them their very first polar bear, and when that comes up on the screen, it's really cool.
It's neat to maybe inspire the next generation of scientists. Seeing their faces light up when we show them videos and photos and talk about our research gives us motivation to keep going and keep doing what we're doing.
Join us as we stream live. You can view the broadcasts on our website or watch live chats on social media. Tune in, ask questions, join our efforts to protect polar bears and the sea ice they depend on.
Welcome to the tundra. This is amazing, but it's cold. This is Tundra Buggy One. Let's go inside and get warm. Whoa, it's cold out there, guys.
I bet.
How's it going?
Good, good.
Oh my goodness, it's so nice to be inside.
I've got something for you.
Thank you. Oh, I knocked off the camera. Careful. Luckily, we can fix that. So this is Tundra Buggy One. We're inside of Tundra Buggy One right now on the shores of the Hudson Bay in northern Canada. And we're here so that we can share polar bears that are just outside the window with each of you. So if you don't know where we are, again, the Hudson Bay, this large body of water in northern Canada. And why we're here is because the ice freezes on the Hudson Bay and polar bears are waiting to go eat seals. And the ice freezes first here outside of Churchill, which is known as the polar bear capital of the world. Now, this Tundra Buggy that I'm holding, this replica, just to give you a little bit of perspective, I'm about as tall as one of these tires. If I walked outside on the ground, it's pretty big. Keeps us safe from the bears. And the bears are right outside the window. In fact, just an hour ago, you could see this bear that was in the willows. He's kind of roaming around. And right now, he wandered out to check the ice. He's out there on the frozen bay. We're going to learn more about that polar bear and other polar bears just like him. And we're going to learn about play today. But right now, let's go learn from a student at the Columbus Zoo.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm here at the Columbus Zoo, and we will be learning all about polar bears at their Polar Frontier exhibit. I'm so excited to learn more about how modern technology can help animals and our planet, and how we can use creativity to help solve real challenges. Today, we will be learning all about Arctic animals and how they learn through play, just like us. We'll also explore how we can make a difference by building the change. And we've got some surprises coming your way, so stay tuned.
I love to learn from experts, and I feel like I'm surrounded by experts today. If you can each introduce yourself. Alysa, I'll start with you. What do you do? What's your role?
All right, so I work for Polar Bears International. I'm a polar bear scientist, so my job is to learn more about polar bears and how we can protect them, and then talk to people like you all around the world.
David, you're an expert in play. What does that mean, and who do you work for?
Hi everyone, I'm David. I work for the LEGO Group and I work on the sustainability team. And I have a really cool role where I combine the power of play with sustainability and connect more children around the world to topics that matter to them. So it's super cool to be here. And I'm a crazy conservationist outside of work, so being here is super exciting.
I think we have a lot of classrooms that are similar. In fact, we have classrooms from all around the world. If we can just take a minute, I'm going to go as quickly as I can to give some shout outs. Because we have classrooms from, let's see here, Discovery Elementary School in Virginia, a 2nd grade class, a school in West Virginia at Kingswood Elementary School, Fort Foote Elementary in Maryland. We have Brockton, Massachusetts, Dr. W. Arnone Elementary in the house. We have a school from New York, Norwood Avenue Elementary School in the house, St. Columbian School in Garden Grove, California. Mrs. Callweiss's class, hello, thank you for joining us. Jennifer Hill's class in Georgia, thank you for joining us. There are so many schools here, and we'll give a couple other shout outs. Mississippi Department of Education is joining us. Did you know that? So many schools. We're so excited that you're here with us. So let's learn a little bit more about these fascinating animals called polar bears.
This is a polar bear. Polar bears are expert Arctic predators. They have an amazing sense of smell and can sniff out faraway prey even under the ice. But because of climate change, finding food is getting more and more difficult. Global warming means the ice habitats where polar bears live are melting away. There's less room to hunt and find shelter, making it hard to sneak up on prey. Hungry bears are entering towns to find food, putting themselves and humans in danger. Luckily, people are working on creative ways to help protect polar bears and their habitats. The key to keeping the ice frozen in the long term will be reducing the greenhouse gas emissions that are causing global warming. But to protect polar bears from the impacts of climate change, we'll need more creative ideas. Ideas like yours. Together, we can build the change.
So talk to us a little bit about Build the Change, because that's what it's about, David, is how we can help students to really make that impact.
Sure. So on our team at the LEGO Group, we have a program called Build the Change, and it's really special. It's been going for about 15 years, and we've heard over 1 million ideas from children around the world on how to make the planet a better place for planet and people. So it's really interesting, social and environmental. And we use learning through play to do it. We know we all like to play, you like to play, and when we play, we learn. And Build the Change is all about bringing that together. So we talk about topics like human impact, we talk about topics like circular economy, climate change, biodiversity loss, but we do it with hope, and we give you the chance to get your ideas heard. So we might give you a challenge on how to help polar bears, for example, and then we want to hear your ideas. So it's really cool because, you know, when we play, we explore, we experiment. It's our brain's favorite way to learn. But imagine if we take that and we take sustainability challenges that the world is facing at the moment and we put them together. We get magic happening, absolute magic. Your ideas are incredible. And don't tell the grown-ups this, but children have the best imaginations, right? Oh, yeah. And you're the most creative. So you have the ideas in you to make this planet a better place, and we can't wait to hear what they are. Let's Build the Change.
That's for sure. That's excellent. And speaking of playing, these polar bears have been rolling around. This morning we saw that bear in the willows just kind of rolling on his back. Alysa, can you share with us some examples that you've seen, some positive impacts from studying polar bears?
Right, so there's a lot we still have left to learn about polar bears, but what we do know is that we can all work together to protect them. And there was this group years ago in this area of photographers. They just loved the bears and loved taking pictures of them. And over time, they noticed that there were some changes and they started asking questions. What's going on? What can we do to help? And from those questions and that love grew Polar Bears International. And now we are the only nonprofit organization in the world that is solely focused on protecting wild polar bears. So a lot of good has come from just asking questions and having a love for something.
Amazing. Now, speaking of specific examples, we had the opportunity, what was that, 2 days ago, to work with some students in the classroom here in Churchill. Again, we're on the shores of the Hudson Bay. Of course, kids go to school everywhere. It's so fascinating to learn from those kids. What kind of examples have you seen as students are working and thinking through challenges and how they can solve those?
Well, we see a lot of amazing ideas, and we've got a few that we're going to show you now. The first up is one of our favorites. It's a shoe that powers your phone as you walk. Now, a young person came up with that and sent it into us, into our gallery. Isn't that cool?
So cool.
Another one is, we all know that space for farming and growing crops and food is running out. So why don't we start making floating gardens where we can grow food? Pretty cool idea, right? Another one, and this is a particular favorite. We shouldn't have favorites, but this is definitely one. This is a machine that captures gas from cows, gas also known in England as windy pops. It captures those and cleans the air and pumps it back out. Now, that gas, methane from cows, is a big problem. So we particularly like that one. And then, as you said, this week we were in Churchill, we were working with children, and they were building things to protect polar bears. And this idea was super cool. It makes ice, it sticks it on a catapult, and then it fires it out into the bay. And then the polar bears obviously have ice to go out and hunt for seals. How cool are those ideas? Amazing.
So good.
I love it. I've seen you playing as we've been together, and I've gotten to know you. You built a little polar bear, if I remember. Yeah, you had that?
Check it out. Check it out.
Oh,
so cute.
Guys, I just walked by the window the other day and take a look at what I saw, because that little polar bear was just looking outside the window. Do we have that? Can we play that? Yeah, this is it. Look at that. That's what it's like if a polar bear watches a polar bear, I guess. I'm not quite sure, but that was so much fun.
It was lovely. They finally met. They finally met. Beautiful.
Well, of course, we always want to know how you can make an impact, so we asked a bunch of students.
It's important that we should know about our environment so we can protect the animals. If you don't, it can kill lots of stuff.
I think humans can create a positive environment for animals by stopping destroying their habitats.
I think we can protect the animals in the Arctic by reducing the emission of greenhouse gases, because that traps a lot of heat in our atmosphere and it melts a lot of sea ice, which we need to protect animals.
We can help by stop littering.
We can protect different animals in the Arctic by recycling plastic.
Lots of times these big boats go out and grab like trash, and then they can bring it back and then like go to the recycling factory, and then they make it into new stuff like bikes, water bottles, and all that.
If we drop some trash, we can always pick it up. You could stop asking your parents to drive you everywhere when you could bike or walk.
We could plant flowers, plant trees, all of the things that live in the Arctic. If the Arctic is not protected, they can go extinct.
Incredible ideas. I just love that. And Alysa, what your organization does, our ability to even be here, to me, is just phenomenal. Can you speak to that positive change of how technology helps you in your work and Polar Bears International's work?
Absolutely. Polar bears live in some of the most remote and harshest environments in the world, and it's so hard to study them and to spread that love sometimes.
Think about that one out on the ice.
Right?
Can we show that one again too?
Yeah,
There's a bear right
way out there.
There he is.
Yeah, so with the use of technology like these cameras that we work with explore.org on to bring you these wild polar bears, we can really help, again, spread that love and spread these ideas of what are polar bears doing, where are they, why are they here, and get these conversations happening. Technology has really allowed us to take that next step in polar bear conservation.
Excellent. Well, I hear that Eva Luna is at the zoo. She's ready to show us more about how technology can help polar bears.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm here with Devin, and she's going to be telling us about all this amazing tech and how it is used with polar bears and other amazing animals in the Arctic. So, what are we looking at here? What is all of this?
So we have a couple examples of tech that we use here at the Columbus Zoo. One project that we were involved in over the last several years is working with Polar Bears International on a project called Fur on Fur that encouraged engineers to come up with a GPS tracking device that can be attached to a polar bear in a minimally invasive way. So the idea was that they come up with something that would attach to the polar bear's fur and then molt off in the spring. In the past, scientists have used these GPS tracking collars on polar bears. However, they can only be used on adult female polar bears. The reason for that is male polar bears have a wider neck than their head, so the collar wouldn't stay on them. And then with young polar bears, they're growing so rapidly that it wouldn't be a good idea to put one of these on them. But a female polar bear can keep these on, and they are programmed to eventually come off after the data is retrieved.
So can I hold this?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, it's actually kind of heavy.
Yeah, that's another thing about those is that they're a little bit bulky. So we are transitioning over to two different types of attachments. These new devices are ones that have been piloted in zoos, and they've also been tested out in the field. And they attach to the fur and then are molted off in the spring. They're helping to collect a lot of invaluable information about polar bear populations, where they're at on the sea ice. And with sea ice loss being the biggest threat to polar bears, it's important for us to know how the polar bears are reacting to that ice loss and see how they're using their habitat when the sea ice is retreating. You could be the next person to come up with an idea that saves an endangered species. Think big, play, and experiment.
I hope you're as inspired as I am by all the ways new ideas and technology are being used to learn about and help animals. Stick around, because we'll be back later with even more cool moments at the Columbus Zoo. Back to you, Kyle.
That's so awesome to learn about. And Alysa, there are challenges here when you're thinking about studying these bears. Everybody saw I was a little bit cold. I'm not set up for these temperatures, that's for sure. Can you speak to some of the just challenges that you have when you're studying polar bears?
Right, Arctic research is really difficult. Now, at this time of the year, it's really special because the bears are here and they've been on land in this area of the world since about mid-June. And this happens every year when Hudson Bay melts, but soon the ice is freezing up and these polar bears, as soon as they can, they're out there on that Arctic sea ice hunting seals. We can use tracking devices like collars and fur tags to find them out there, but even that technology has a hard time. You know, in the Arctic in the winter, it's very, very dark, so it would be hard for researchers to find the bears. And even with the tags, there's the cold water, the cold wind, the ice. We've seen this polar bear rubbing its body all the time, you know, and you can imagine anything you put on the bear might rub off. So it's difficult. So we need a lot of creative ideas and trying things again and again and again to figure out what works.
Amazing. I think about that, the challenges that scientists have.
Oh, yeah.
David, I'm wondering, what are those similarities between the challenges scientists have, but also that exploration of play?
Absolutely. Well, when we have a quality play experience, there are certain characteristics that are there. So let's break those down and then see what scientists use. Yeah. So first of all, we iterate in a quality play experience. That means we build things, we test things, we experiment. When they fail, we fail again, we try again, and then hopefully at the end we succeed. Now, do scientists do that? Of course they do. That's exactly what they do with experimenting, research, etc. So what else do we do when we play? We're socially interactive. When we're socially interactive, we share ideas with people, we build empathy, compassion, we hear other people's perspectives. Now, scientists also do that. They have to share their work with others, they share it with the world, and they get opinions and gather information that way. Super cool. Then we have when they're actively engaged. Now, what does that mean? Actively engaged isn't necessarily like running around. You know, it's also about getting the brain active through physical movement. We call this hands-on, minds-on in the LEGO group. When you interact, even if it's a small action, it gets the brain working in different ways. It opens it up to other ideas and other routes of investigation. That's exactly what scientists need. Now, I'm not suggesting scientists are in the labs like dancing and stuff. Maybe they do. Maybe they're studying dance. But it definitely helps when you're active. And you see scientists in the field working that way. Okay, when it's meaningful, we definitely play. We learn a lot more from play. If something isn't meaningful, we disengage. We get bored, right? If we're really in it and it's relevant to us, then we love it. Now, scientists, of course, I think it's very meaningful for them. This is their life's work, right? They really want to get involved. And this brings us to our last point. If play is not joyful, then something's wrong. Do you like playing when it's not joyful?
Is it even play?
Is it even play, right? Exactly. So that's another similarity. Scientists love their work. They are dedicated to their work. So, you know, Kyle, there's a lot of similarities with the way scientists approach their work.
Well, speaking of play, I'm pretty sure Eva Luna is joining us. Are you on a Tundra Buggy?
Gotcha, Kyle. But seriously, how cool is this? It's like we're with you in Churchill. Except these buggies don't get a lot of protection from the bad weather. And look at all the slides. I'm here at the Polar Playground, part of Battelle Ice Bear Outpost in the Columbus Zoo. It's an awesome place where we can play, explore, and be inspired to create change. And here at the zoo, animals are learning through play too. Right, Devin?
That's right. So one of my favorite things about polar bears is how playful they are. And we've been very lucky here that we've had 5 polar bear cubs grow up here at the Columbus Zoo, and they are exceptionally playful. Polar bear cubs have to build up the strength to be able to dive down to the bottom of the pool like their moms do. And one of the ways they do this is using some of their enrichment toys. They like to try to sink the toys and then watch them bounce back up in the water. And through that interaction with the toys, they build up strength and learn how to dive down to the bottom of the pool.
That is so cool. So why is it important for polar bears to play?
We like to give our polar bears toys as a means to keeping them physically and mentally active. Just like you learn through play, so do the polar bears. So something that we've seen here is when we introduce polar bears to each other and they're getting to know each other for the first time, a lot of the times they will bring play into that situation. So it can be used as an icebreaker for them. They can go play with a toy and kind of interact with that, and another polar bear starts playing with that toy as well, and it's a good way for them to get to know each other and feel each other out.
That's so cool. So, how do you know they learn through play?
When we've had polar bear cubs here in the past, we've watched them learn from mom, but also through play with enrichment or even with their siblings. And they go from being very cautious cubs, unsure about their environment, to by the time they're 2 years old, they know how to handle everything. They're diving to the bottom of the pool, jumping off Pride Rock, catching their own fish in the pool.
So, how do you know if polar bears like playing with the toys?
Well, I think that they like playing with them because sometimes they will play with them for hours and hours.
That's amazing. Do you play with the polar bears?
We as zookeepers offer the polar bears a lot of the items that they love to play with, so that's something that helps strengthen the bond that we have for them. We also sometimes will use play to help them learn new behaviors that help us to better care for them. So for example, if a polar bear wants to open their mouth really wide for a new toy, we can transfer that behavior to a cue, which might be a hand signal that we'll show them, or we might say open. And they learn that when we say that or show that cue that we want them to open their mouths really, really wide, and that's a great way for us to see how healthy their teeth are.
That is so nice. Have you ever learned anything through play?
You can learn by doing basically anything. I love to play. It's really fun.
I love that you can just be creative and do anything you want because no one's like judging you, and it's just like your own world.
Play can change the world because it'll bring each other together.
I'll often play tag with people that I've never met before, and I'll still have an awesome time.
When you're playing, you're not really thinking about anything else. You're just working together and having fun.
It just brings joy to different people.
I like to play because my imagination always helps me when I'm playing.
My favorite things to play with are basketball, soccer. I like building and designing.
Running is my favorite thing ever. A scooter is my favorite way to play.
I like to play soccer,
and I like to play hide and seek.
When I play, it makes me feel happier and it relieves stress.
Play is not only for kids, it can be for anybody.
Even grown-ups should play because there's so many fights in the world and everybody should just be able to be happy. Play makes me happy.
My superpower is thinking.
Making everybody smile.
Being kind.
It's important that we play so you can learn new things and learn from your mistakes.
Do you see anything out there, David?
Hey, Carl, just the blinding whiteness of the tundra. Do you see it? Do you see it too?
There certainly is a lot of tundra out there. Hopefully, even more in a little bit here.
Definitely, definitely.
Wow, it's so interesting to see how play makes such an impact. I know that we've enjoyed playing, having a good time so far. Can you tell us just a little bit, how does play help us to identify those solutions to problems?
Well, play is magic, as I mentioned earlier. When we play, we tap into some skills too. We develop and nurture skills. If we don't play when we're younger, like animals, we don't nurture those skills, we don't develop them. So it's really important to do that. But how does that help problem solving, right? How does it help problem solving? Well, let's break it down. Look, the first thing is when we play, we develop social skills. I mentioned earlier scientists being social. We also, when we play, we're social. We hear each other's ideas. We grow empathy. That's super cool. That's perfect for problem solving. Now, we also have emotional skills that we develop. Imagine if you had a problem and you couldn't control your emotions. You're like, no! So emotional skills are really important to remain calm when you have problem solving. Really key. And we also, of course, are creative. We're creative when we play. Now, problem solving is a creative task. You have to think creatively. And creativity is super, super key to that. Then we have cognitive. What is cognitive? Big word alert. Cognitive is when the brain is working, and very, very key skill for problem solving. You have to think about strategy. You have to think about critical thinking. You have to look at a task and think, okay, this is going to work. This isn't going to work. That is all down to your brain power. And play helps you do that. And lastly, last but not least, physical. Now, physical skills when you're playing, as I said earlier, it gets your brain going in different ways. And it's super important. I think right now is a good time to do a little physical task. Are you ready?
Sure.
Do you want to try?
Yeah, we could use it.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, now we are in the tundra, so we're going to adapt this a little bit. There's a bird that lives in the tundra called ptarmigan, right? The ptarmigan, the willow ptarmigan. You have rock ptarmigans too. So we're going to be a ptarmigan today. And if you're in your classroom at home, if you're in your classroom, get going like this. Get blood going. Good, guys. You've been practicing. Very good. Now get your arms, put them in front of you, and shake them like a polar bear picture. That's it. Good.
Polar bear picture?
Polar bear picture. It's a new thing. It's a new thing. It's a famous song. Then we are going to get them, the hands, and go like this. All right? Like that.
Yeah.
Are you ready? This is it. 1, 2, 3, and twist. You did. Should we try again? So hands up in the air. You guys at home, try it in your classrooms. And then we get our hands like this.
Cross them.
Yep. Cross them like that. Yep. And then 1, 2, 3, twist. Kyle, you have to keep practicing. If you want to be a lifelong learner, you're going to have to keep practicing. Is that cool?
I think that works. I'll keep working on this and playing. But meanwhile, there is a lot to learn while we're here in the tundra. Polar bears, of course, are one animal that we can study, but they rely on sea ice, and there's so much else that depends on sea ice. Let's learn a little bit more about that.
We know that polar bears rely on sea ice for survival, but lots of other animals do too. What other animals rely on Arctic ice?
So all animals in the Arctic rely on the sea ice. A good way to think about sea ice in the Arctic is that it's equivalent to what soil is in a forest. On the underside of sea ice, there are channels where algae or phytoplankton form, and zooplankton feeds on the phytoplankton, fish feed on the zooplankton, seals feed on the fish, and seals are the main source of prey for polar bears, which are at the top of the food chain in the Arctic. They also rely on it for breeding and also, in some cases, for denning. So when polar bears are hunting ring seals, they're not quite fast and agile enough to hunt them in the water, so they really rely on the sea ice to be a platform for the seals to rest on, or seals will also form breathing holes in the sea ice. So polar bears will take advantage of these two opportunities to hunt their seals. And seals are very important to them because that is how they build up their own thick layer of body fat to survive life in the Arctic by eating that seal blubber.
Why is sea ice important?
So sea ice is not only important for the animals in the Arctic, but it's important for all of us because sea ice helps regulate the temperature of our planet and makes it habitable for all of us.
What happens if all the ice melts?
So polar bears are specially adapted for the cold. However, the most southern population of polar bears, which is up in Churchill where Kyle is right now, and they do experience a summer. So what happens there is in the spring, the sea ice completely melts away, and then they go through a fasting period over the summer, and then the sea ice reforms in the fall, and that is when they have the ability to hunt the seals again. The issue we're seeing with climate change is that sea ice melt in the spring is happening early and earlier because of the warming climate, and then the ice formation in the fall is happening later and later. So what that is causing for the polar bears is a longer fasting season and a shorter period of time to hunt the ring seals, which in the end makes them more vulnerable to extinction.
I want to say these animals not only survive, but thrive. And I know you do too. So let's hear from some fellow students with their ideas for protecting Arctic animals.
I built a house for the polar bear so he can never get hot again.
The solar panels can reflect the sunlight so all the animals can live safely in the igloo.
It helps the polar bears to keep them safe in the wild. It's a special fishing rod to collect trash from the ocean. If we produce this special type of seaweed, the scientists have found, it can make our whole entire environment better.
What about you? Do you have any ideas for protecting Arctic animals? Let us know and join the conversation. Back to you, Kyle.
Those were amazing ideas. I love hearing those. Keep exploring, everyone. And we just love hearing your ideas so much. So please make sure you share them with us. Awesome.
Speaking of sharing ideas, there's a lot of students out there that are sharing questions. I think it's a perfect time to answer some of those questions because there are some themes emerging. I can tell that the students are listening, probably giggling a little bit with us today, but hopefully learning something as well. So there was 2 classrooms, one classroom that's pre-K at St. Lawrence Elementary School and another first grade classroom at PS 94 King's College School. And they both were wondering about that intersection of play and polar bears, Alysa. So let's start with this. How often do you see polar bears play?
Right. Well, at this time of the year, we do see play sometimes, and it usually happens when the temperatures get below freezing. That's cooler for the polar bears because they can overheat if it's too warm. Right now, there's no food to eat. There's no mating, so all there really is to do is to play. So we sometimes do see often a couple males, sometimes a female in there, and kind of wrestle and play and exercise, and it is just incredible to watch.
We saw a polar bear the other day playing with a branch.
Oh, they do that? They do. They'll take what they can get. Yeah.
That happened this morning, too. I don't know if we can go back to that one or not, but that was so cool. He's rolling on his back, kind of chewing on the bark.
Yeah.
So cute.
Which also leads to the other question they had, because they wanted to know, do only young polar bears play? I think sometimes play is considered something that only kids can do. I know as a human adult, sometimes, the way we play is different, but do only adult polar bears play? Do only cub polar bears play? How does that work?
Right. I think it's very common for young polar bears to play. As you were saying, young polar bears are so creative and practicing in their brains and in their bodies. But we do also see adults play. Again, especially at this time of the year, adults will wrestle with each other. But it's also so cute when we get to see the little cubs playing and learning how to be polar bears and practicing their bodies. It's very sweet.
I love it.
Yeah.
There's a question from a 3rd grade class, and this is a really interesting kind of connection here. Is animal play for survival? Do we know? Is it an inherited trait or is it more of a learned behavior? And I just love that question because we also know these classrooms out there, they're learning about inherited traits, they're learning about ecosystems. There's so many other science topics that they can connect this to. So yeah, do you have an answer for that?
Right. It's probably a little bit of both. There's probably some inherited trait that animals who did play were more successful in the wild. And they also see each other playing and it looks fun and it's something to do and it really benefits them as they get older. So play is great at any age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Evolution tends to get rid of things that we don't really need, right?
Totally.
But play has remained.
And across so many species. It's very obviously important.
Great
go play.
Interesting, kind of a universal language there. Play.
Yeah.
I like it.
There's a lot of other questions coming in, and I think it's appropriate to also answer some of the more serious questions here. So, Alysa, can you share? This is a class of 3rd, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So I think that the teacher has a bunch of different students together, and they're wondering, is there a problem with the decrease in sea ice, and how does that impact polar bear populations?
It's a great question. So in parts of the world, we are already losing Arctic sea ice because it's getting too warm. And we do know this will continue unless we change our actions. But the problem really is that less sea ice means less food for polar bears. They don't have as much access to seals, which have all the calories they need. And really, we need to keep that access open so polar bears can go eat those seals. And that means keeping Arctic sea ice across the north. And we know that we can do that by switching to cleaner energy sources and coming up with more creative ideas to help us have a cleaner, better planet for polar bears and for us too.
That's excellent. You kind of answered my next question, but I'll see if you have any more there because we had questions from Del Rio Student Center as well as Joseph Bryansinger Elementary School, and they were wondering, what can humans do to keep polar bears safe in their own habitat? Now that's something that happens here. I'm wondering maybe you could also speak to what it's like for that coexistence of where people live where polar bears also exist.
Absolutely. One of the reasons that this area we're in is so famous is that polar bears live with the people in the town, and they come through town sometimes. Churchill, Manitoba is sometimes called the polar bear capital of the world, and they are the best at living with polar bears. And so we want to keep polar bears safe and in the wild, but we very much want to keep people safe and in their homes and have kids playing on the playground. So there's a lot of different things we can do. One of the most effective things is taking care of our garbage and having bear-proof garbage bins. So bears that come in and they're so smart trying to figure out the garbage cans don't get rewarded. And we also have people just keeping an eye out all the time. We have educational materials for kids, how to stay safe. There's a lot of different ways that people and polar bears can live safely together.
Just the other day when we arrived, there was one in town, wasn't there?
There was the day you guys came
exciting.
in. Yeah, and it got pushed out of town. People worked together to move the bear out of town, so the bear is okay and everyone's okay. But
great.
yeah, it absolutely happens here.
It's incredible. We want you to continue to learn more. And if you think about it, we've learned a whole lot about play today. We've learned about how technology can be a force for good and not impact or not have a negative impact on animals, on ecosystems and more. And we've learned how play can really be a force for good in the world. So what I would love to know is if you have any closing thoughts. And while you think about that, I do want to just give a real special shout out to Devin and Eva Luna at the Columbus Zoo. They did such an amazing job and helped us to just see how we could play and learn about polar bears. Of course, zoos are a great place that you can learn about this environment because we know you can't all get here, but we're so glad you're learning about it with us today. So, Alysa, any closing thoughts that you have for the students out there?
I just want to celebrate your big ideas and encourage you to keep learning, keep playing. It will be your ideas that shape our future, and you are going to be the ones that help us protect polar bears and our planet and ourselves. And we're just so excited to hear what you're all coming up with.
David.
Yeah. I mean, first off, I can't believe I'm here. It's just incredible to be here with you and to be talking to all of you out here. It's such a privilege, having been a naturalist most of my life, to finally be in the subarctic with polar bears. It's incredible. It's given me another perspective on things and big things that are happening around the world, and just, reconfirms in my mind that young people like you need to share their ideas and need to be heard. That creativity you have is so powerful. So we would love you to build or create or design whatever materials you have. We would love for you to think about what you could design to help polar bears. It might be something local to you to help climate change reduce, or it might be something specifically for the tundra habitat. But if you do have ideas, please share them with us and use the hashtag #LegoBuildTheChange. And remember, you can use any materials you like. You can draw, you can sculpt, you can chisel, whatever you fancy. But thank you so much for having us here, and thank you all of you out there for being so awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
On behalf of Discover Education, we just want to thank Polar Bears International for always having us, the amazing partnerships you have out here that enable us to be on Tundra Buggy One. For the Lego Group, so much fun to learn about play. So much fun. Thank you, David. This has been a blast. And mostly, students, thank you for joining us. I want to challenge you. What can you do today? What can you do next week? What can you do next month? You have the opportunity to build a change. We really feel that you do. We know that you do. So think about that as you're learning. And thank you so much for joining us, playing with us today, and learning with us today. Have a great rest of your day. See you, everybody.